I guess we're live. Dr. Kennard here with the Knock Knock.
Oh yeah, knock knock. Who's there?
What's up, Rage? Yeah. We were just talking that we're professionals. We don't need warm-up time to get our patter synchronized. We've been doing this for quite a while.
Yeah, I'm just realizing I still have that name up there. I used it. I went into let me mute the stream. I went into a Smoky Saint stream a couple nights ago, so I named myself Knock Knock.
Nice, dude. Nice. Yeah, who was I talking to? I was talking to someone about that stream with Smoky Saint. It was on yesterday's after party. And it's like, I saw it in my subscriptions. I didn't see it because, but I only know a little bit about Smoky Saint, besides the fact that, the man's a lunatic. Pedophile? Is he a pedophile? What's going on?
It's up in the air. Like I definitely lean that he definitely is, in my opinion, but he's been able to kind of draw a question to the accusations and never answer them, and kind of play that GOP trick of time will lessen controversy, and he played it well, I think.
Well, it sounds like a classic lawyer defense, right?
Yeah.
You only have to put a reasonable doubt into people's brains, and all of a sudden you're not a pedophile, even though you probably are.
Yeah, well, and the story is the girl was 14 to 16. He would have been, we assume, probably early to mid 20s. But it could have been, he could have been even older than that. But we do know that the female in question was like 14 to 16 years old, even though we don't know her identity, right. Victim protection laws. But he ran away from North Carolina, was caught in California, sent back to North Carolina, and the case hasn't been settled. We have facial recognition software that pretty much ties it. That's not 100% proof, but his voice ties him to the same person. He was using this same person's name, gave out this phone number to people, and so yeah, I tend to lean that it was definitely him. But right. he played the long game with it, and now he's respected in the Christian community.
So let me ask you this question, Rage. Let's say that we're in Las Vegas, right? I have a bunch of money and I want to bet on the fact that Smoky Saint is not a perp. What kind of odds would I be getting here?
Oh man, that he wasn't our perp in question.
Yeah,
man, I'd 20 to 1.
All right, yeah, there you go. It's that's basically everyone. This is just a shitty metric I use. It's like, where is the smart money going, right?
Yeah. And I covered it on my stream, and in retrospect, I probably shouldn't have. I did it out of outrage more than like trying to reveal truth. But yeah, I think without a doubt, I only covered it a couple times, and I've stayed attuned to like all the information that has come out. With the changing of his story, the using of people like Will Kincaid to propagate his story. I think that definitely shows an element of guilt, but the Christian community here on YouTube doesn't really seem to care about it too much.
I'm sure that there's a logical fallacy about not being convinced of a point from someone who hasn't showered in a few days. But whenever I see Will, and I haven't seen Will that many times, I always thought to myself, sir, I would take and this is on me. This is on me. If you showered more often, you'd be much more, I would feel more likely that I would believe you, but that's not the case.
Well, yeah, and there's this, like, his neutral is sending his acolytes and trying to utilize sending himself out to be more reasonable and respectful and to kind of infiltrate some of these atheist talk shows to not only propagate myself, but just to propagate his ideas into some of the things that we talk about. So it's worked out successfully for him, and people like I just get amazed. I'm like, people actually take him seriously. It's frustrating for me.
There are a lot of rookies. I don't want to be the old guy. I don't want to sound like I'm the old guy.
Yeah,
but there are a lot of rookies on YouTube who don't know any better.
I got pissy about it at first, but I ultimately came to that same conclusion. I've been here on YouTube for 4 years now, fighting these battles. I've learned my lessons. These people, they'll have to learn them themselves.
Yeah, exactly. What's up, John Hudson?
Well, good morning. Just got a Bloody Mary breakfast to go do.
No, I
I'm
love
gonna
that.
go meet with that event planner from the Stunt Ranch and some pyrotechnics people.
You seem to be covering a lot of events that blow things up. I mean, I'm envious, to tell you the truth. I am envious.
Yeah, it's getting the son-in-law more involved in this industrial strength flamethrower I want to build.
Well, John, in case you get blown up by the flamethrower, you're gonna die like you lived, brother. If I fell down, if I tripped over something on the street and banged my head the wrong way, people would be like, "Yeah, that makes sense too." That would be that's perfect sense.
I look at it. I've already got 40 years of borrowed time, so what the fuck?
It really is perspective. Yeah, it really is perspective. It's like, as I look at my own life, this is just gravy for me. This is just, these are just added perks.
Well, I kind of feel like I've got 100 years in already. Many times I cheated, bite the big one,
Right. I hear you.
To where, do it for another 40 years and fuck, I got 200 years of life in. Whoa!
That's right. Well, it's that philosophical discussion about it isn't the amount of life that you have as much as how you spent the life that you lived.
Speaking of philosophy, I've been kind of getting into some Plato, and and actually, when you read Plato on Atlantis, and if you take away all the woo-woo that was written after Plato, he made sense, not just in a philosophical way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like Plato's always been like the source of Atlantis. Like whether it's myth, or, fact or fiction. Plato was the first that talked about it, and Plato talked about it in a way that it was real.
Thank you, Black female atheist. Love you, Jenna.
This is true because John does have much more of a fashion sense than I do. I am in my traditional dull colors, while John just brightens things up.
Yeah. I'm always black or gray or know.
Yeah.
It makes me happy to wear colorful clothes.
Oh, that's good.
It puts me in a better state of mind. I go dark when I'm wearing dark, and not at my best.
I have to tell you, is that's a great hack. Because a lot of life is about figuring out what works for you, right? Yeah. Figuring out what brings out the best in your personality. For me, I need sunlight. Even though my eyes are like fucking sensitive to the sun, I will open up the blinds, for example, during the day, so that the sunlight comes in and it keeps me from getting too down or too anxious, maybe.
Yeah. Well, this time of year in Texas in the morning, it's foggy, so I keep the blinds closed till I'm able to see the sun, because I see that and it's depressing to me.
No, yeah.
And it's like my daughter, her company's out of the UK. She's like, well, what if I got transferred there? I'm like, I can't go.
Winter's always covered in cloud here. We've had a couple sunny days the last couple of days, and like none of us know what to do with it. It's almost like we pretend like it's summer. Like people will even be like wearing shorts and shit. Like, dude, it's still 30, but it's sunny outside,
Yeah.
So that's one thing about living in Salt Lake. I was always wearing short pants, even in the wintertime, because we didn't get that many. It could snow that night and then be, 40, 50 degrees that day. Mm-hmm. And I actually had I'm shoveling snow, probably have 4 or 5 foot piles of snow. And a lady from Minnesota comes pulling up and she's like, "Can I take your picture?" Why? She's like, "The folks back home ain't gonna believe this."
Oh yeah. Here, I mean, we've had milder winters. It's 30s is actually fairly warm for Michigan, because like sometimes this time of year we're usually down in single digits, below zero. So you've got to have your thermals, and if to be successful in Michigan, you got to dress in layers.
Oh yeah, yeah, I'm with you on that, Rage. Because I do this currying as my day job, so when it's cold out, I'll have at least a good 4 or 5 layers on.
Yeah, but it's been mild. I mean, we're supposed to have a really bad winter this year, and so far it's been somewhat mild.
Yeah, sure enough.
Well, that layered look it's a sexy look.
That's good. I'll have to tell my girlfriend that.
Yeah, you definitely don't look fat when you're layered. You just look layered,
Very dapper. It looks educated. I don't know, college professor look.
What do you think? I should get like some kind of pipe too, like some kind of regal, like insanely large pipe, like the villain from Inglourious Bastards had, right? That huge, pipe. I think that would.
The Sherlock Holmes pipe,
Yeah, they are the Sherlock Holmes pipe. Sure, definitely. So Doc, how are you doing with your health, buddy? Because I know that you're in this constant kind of back and forth about.
Yeah, I'm still in that waiting game. I was supposed to have, thought I was going to have some answers, but then my daughter had symptoms. I had to get her tested, and it fell right, like my foot appointment fell right in there. So I'm still waiting to hear on my foot what they're going to do about it. And now I've got to wait till like January 20 something. Just because COVID is hitting hard here. It's hard to get into the doctors. I'm trying desperately to get my daughter's endocrinologist closer, because I drive like 2 hours to take her to the doctor. So yeah, I mean, I'm still waiting on my lung shit. Like they don't seem to understand, what's I think I'll probably be like studied for the rest of my life because the effects of COVID, and they're learning from people like me what long haulers is doing to people.
If there's a way that you could charge for that, I would suggest.
Yeah, yeah, I should. I should, but they just keep, I thought it was over, because they found a spot in my lungs, and they were like, this might be it, you're getting lung cancer, and it turned out it wasn't that. It's all to do with the COVID, and I've had a lot of tests, but I've had no answers. So
yeah. How's your daughter doing? Is your daughter doing okay?
Oh yeah. My main thing is, I've got to quit smoking, and if I don't quit smoking, I'm not going to be around to see her get too much older. So I got to focus on that, and that's going to probably have me in some moods for a while.
Oh yeah.
I've had some drug issues in my life, and the nicotine is the one that I just can't seem to beat.
Yeah, I did it for like 2 months, and it
was there.
It was just like a half a cigarette, and then boom, I was like right back, and it's like it's the hardest drug I've ever tried to quit. I was able to quit drinking, but I can't quit smoking. Both of them, because I need to quit smoking weed and cigarettes.
Yeah. So which one would you choose first, Rage?
I gotta quit the weed first, because I smoke after I smoke a bowl. So it kind of the cigarettes go with the weed at this point. It's not the other way around.
And the edibles just don't do it for you, huh?
Yeah, no. But a clean and sober life will only make me a better orator here on YouTube. It's just going to take some time to get there. There's going to be some mood swings in between.
I'm just the opposite. I've found when I'm smoking weed, I'm not as likely to smoke tobacco.
Really? I wish I didn't, because it's horrible for you. Especially if you're smoking weed, you should not smoke cigarettes right after, because when you're smoking weed, you're coughing, you're opening up your lungs. So that cigarette smoke, when you smoke it, it gets down deeper. It's not good for you. It could be a huge problem why COVID messed me up like it did.
Yeah. So I just want to say there's someone in the back room here, Cristiano Lorenzetti. See, there's a few reasons why I'm not letting you into the panel, Cristiano Lorenzetti. One, I don't see your face. Two, your avatar is of a Knights Templar about to put down the hurt on someone. So maybe you're a troll. Perhaps you're a troll.
Come back tomorrow, join in on the chat, and I'll do it for a week or two. And if you're not an ass wipe, you might get let in.
Maybe.
Yeah, I've never heard that
Maybe.
name before.
No. But I do like the Knights Templar look. It's very, very intense. And of course, the Knights Templar got screwed by the Pope too, right?
Yeah.
And the powers, the other Christian powers who are jealous of your.
Yeah.
So it's kind of ironic that Christians would be like, "Hey, look at this group here.
Yeah, it's like
Got
why
persecuted by other Christians. Hey."
it's like why Friday the 13th is a superstitious day is because on a Friday the 13th the Pope ordered the murder of all Knights Templar.
Well, it was similar to, and it doesn't always go back to Nazis, but in this case it does go back to Nazis. It's like the Night of the Long Knives where Hitler purged the brown shirts, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, we got to get rid of these guys. They go against our interests. So once
the conspiracy theorists will tell you, well, it's because they had the secret information about Jesus Christ. It's like, nope. They had a competitive banking system with the Vatican. That's why the Pope did it.
Mad money, and a lot of property. That's what.
Well, wasn't one of the kings owed all them Templars the money too?
Oh yeah. Well, they pretty much had the only banking system in the world at the time, and yeah, it generated a vast wealth. Yeah. Pope didn't like that too much.
No. So there you go. So once again, Cristiano, you can come on if you're part of the community, show your face. Maybe someone can vouch for you, but otherwise, you're just wasting your time. I mean, you can waste your time. I can riff some more on Knights Templar if you want me to. There's a lot of material there, but maybe it's just not worth my time. Maybe.
I got into that Dan Brown shit for a while, man. I was like, oh, this is fascinating.
Oh, the Dan Brown stuff.
Hey, what compels you, Rage, to go on to the show? I was watching your stuff the other night, and you and Danny, and
yeah.
I'm like, they wouldn't fucking give you a second to rebut. There's like 8 fucking guys trying to gang rape you. It was
the Vipers Den. Well, really, it happened on my show once. Me and Allie did a show, and we hosted all these Christians. Like, just come in, and, because I was getting accused. And back then, I would be open about it. I would let the smartest people around me to make the arguments, and it was like I was learning from them as they were doing it. But I would get accused of that. So I'm like, yeah, y'all just come on. And I had a Vipers Den on my channel one night, and I crushed all of them. It was like I was playing this game of chess with each and every person in the room, and I've been addicted to it ever since. It doesn't always work out in my favor because sometimes I get triggered and I go off.
what you were in your zone. You was in your comfort spot with the home court. That will always give you an advantage.
Well, yeah, and Allie was trying to play fair moderator through it, but yeah, she definitely has some bias. And that's since then I go into their court. I go into their den of vipers. Sometimes it doesn't pan out. Like sometimes I make myself look like an ass because they will trigger the hell out of me, and I'll respond in kind. But my goal is to not do that. So when I don't do that, which is I think hopefully most of the time, it usually. If I can sit there and I can be quiet and I keep that mute button on and only, choose my specific times to respond, I usually come out of it looking pretty good for the audience. And I think that's vital in normalizing atheism is to be able to go into these rooms and combat all of them. But you got to do it right. And sometimes I don't. So that's kind of what I'm working on.
Either way with this Cristiano kid, you're 9, you're 12, get your fucking ass in school. Or you one of them fucking homeschool pricks.
Everyone thinks that every villain thinks that they're a hero, my friend. That's what it is. Every villain thinks that
he's trolling at this point, probably.
Yeah.
I just noticed that because I never look at private chat. Well, yeah, I shouldn't say crush them. Those are just my terminologies. That night in my room, I was dancing. Yeah.
You have them days though, but it's usually on a home court. You know what I mean?
Kind of like in that last one, how Danny was. When they try to capture me on, they try to capture me on philosophy, and I was just sitting there laughing at it because it's that same thing, Andy, that you hear as an atheist every goddamn time. How do you have the moral justification to know what is right and wrong as an atheist, right? And Danny comes in and they didn't know philosophy for dick. So it was kind of like how Danny was dancing, although Smokey was the only one in the room that could really even talk to Danny.
Yeah.
Well, that if I could have crawled through the airwaves or whatever, that Seth would not be in existence.
Yeah, no, man,
he was
that dude,
fucking total douche.
And he looks like such a runt too. Like you notice how it's like usually the little itty bitty people with the biggest voices. And I'm not trying to talk smack or you should be able to do violence, but it's at the same time like you talk such a big game, you know. So
But,
yeah,
it's
he was
the people,
atrocious.
it's the people who, and this is the toxic nature of faith, isn't it? Right, the people who have suffered the most are the ones who cling to it. I mean, outside of the scammers, outside of the people at the very top who are scammers and grifters, the everyday people, the ones who really gravitate to faith, are the ones who have suffered or have run their lives into a ditch, and they're the most vocal apologists for it.
He's a Calvinist, so I'm not sure if John picked that up. Because I asked the question, like I was just asking questions. I was like, so Jesus died for everybody, right? They all seem to agree with that, but they all hate gay people. They all hate.
I love Calvinists. I love Calvinists.
He clearly said, nope. I believe God saves the elect, and that's Calvinist.
And you know what? You gotta. If I had a hat, I would take it off and say thank you. I think that is logically coherent, and that God is a moral monster.
Exactly, and I did. I was like, "Hey, at least you're honest. God's a dick.
Own it. God is a monster. He lives under your bed."
So, educate me on this Calvinist thing. They love God, but he's an asshole.
Okay, so it's all about predetermination, and not check me when I'm wrong. All right, it's all about predestination. We have no free will. God chooses the elect at the beginning of time. And the elect are the ones that are going to go to heaven. Everyone else is not. Man is innately sinful and trash. And the only reason why things aren't a complete trash fire here on earth is because of God's grace.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. Really?
Yeah, you nailed it. I believe his name is John Calvin.
Oh, yeah, John Calvin.
Fascinating figure to study.
Oh, yeah.
But the Calvinists are a different breed. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, dude. They're nutsy crazy.
Wow.
But you got to
and you picked that up from him easily, right? Like he was just, out there.
Well, you got to hand it to the Calvinists. They do take the problem of free will seriously, right?
Yeah.
And they just said, fuck it, we don't have any. We're not going to even try to play that game.
I guess he figures he's one that God's saving.
That he's one
chosen.
Part of the elect. Yeah.
Everyone who espouses that shit thinks that they're the one that God's picking.
God only helps on outcomes of fucking football games and shit. Everybody knows that.
Well, everyone in Texas knows that, friend.
And I hate this whole narrative because, normal Christians just spew this shit, and it drives me nuts. Like, you think that Jesus died for the entire world. And yet, even if you add up all of Christians and don't count the heretics and you count the Catholics, you're not even at half the world. How can you say he died to sacrifice the entire world when you're going to exclude gays from that, when you're going to exclude godless from that, when you're going to exclude Buddhists and Muslims and Jews and everything else except for Christian? It makes no sense. I hate the argumentation, and it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
If God doesn't exist, what do atheists believe in?
Disbelieve
I believe you ought to keep your trap shut.
I disbelieve God, just like I disbelieve in Yahweh, just like I disbelieve in Thor or Zeus.
Yeah, exactly. It's all kind of myth to me. Like I've always said, Muad'Dib was better. Like if you read Frank Herbert's Dune, Muad'Dib is such a better god than any of these gods we have.
Yeah,
because he's a human god,
It's a beautiful book. I've read it a number of times. I read it the first time in high school, and definitely worth the time. If you haven't read Dune yet, anyone? Yeah.
At least the first 4 books. Get to the God Emperor. After that, it kind of goes into the future a bit. But the first 4 books are about the Atreides, specifically Paul Atreides and his son Leto. Great books. Fascinating.
And what that again, Rage?
It's called Dune.
Okay. That was a movie, wasn't it? Back in the 70s.
Well, they just made a new one that's supposed to be pretty decent.
It's a new movie. I just saw the first installment. It comes in 2 installments.
Yeah.
Because it's a book that's incredibly hard to translate into film, because there's a lot of this kind of inner dialogue of the characters and a lot of backstory. And when you're doing a film, it's difficult to translate that properly.
And fairly controversial themes. It incorporates Islamic, Abrahamics, jihad, It's a very complex story. It's always been one of my favorites, and I've always said Muad'Dib is probably one of the greatest gods that I've ever read. A second close would be like what was his name? Korak from the Belgariad series. See, like science fiction writers can come up with better gods than they could 2,000 years ago. They fascinate me more.
I guess I'll have to go revisit that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I identify with Satan. He just wanted to make people equal. And he has great music. Yeah, Deep Parks, I'm not going to argue with you on that one.
Well, that's always been one of my arguments, is that Satan is the good guy of the Bible. If you look at the story of Adam and Eve, Satan is telling the truth. He's telling Adam and Eve the truth. They eat of the tree of life. They don't die. They become as knowledgeable, quote unquote, as God. Yeah. People miss that part of the story. Like we're as smart as God gets, right? Like we humans, we stupid humans. But like Satan's always, to me, was like kind of like the good guy, trying to tempt Jesus away from the monster genocidal maniac that he calls father in the desert. Like what did Satan really do that was bad?
Yeah. So Scapegoat Iscariot points out that many passages in the Gospels attest to the Calvinist view of predestination. Yep. Yeah, I can definitely say that.
I call that shit out too. Like I love to call Christians out for their Paul belief and not their Christ belief, because most modern day Christians are acolytes of Paul and where he took the religion.
Yeah. If it wasn't for Paul, it would just be a Jewish sect.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't until people were and it wasn't until Paul figured out he had a vision that you don't have to cut your penis and you can eat bacon. That's when he's like, hey, this faith can really take off.
Yeah, they must have had some good mushrooms growing on the side of the road of Damascus,
Well, if you ask Joe Rogan, if you ask Joe Rogan, he'd be like, ivermectin works against COVID, and it was all mushrooms.
Well, there are a lot of acacia bushes there, which DMT derives from. So,
I have a lot of issues with Jake. Snake is Right here on YouTube, because he's far right winger. But I've always loved his name. Snake is Right.
Snake Plissken? Are we talking about Snake Plissken?
No.
The
maybe.
devil. Oh, the devil.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, ancient Christians. What were they? Marian followers of Marcion, maybe Gnostics. They thought that the God of the Old Testament was the evil God, and a cursory look at the Old Testament makes you say, well, maybe that is an evil God there. And there is a separate God in the New Testament.
Well, and I could be wrong about this. I'm not. Sometimes I never know, like, if things I draw from my mind are from some of like the old alternative histories I read. But like, I believe Yahweh came from Samaria and was a war god.
He was a mashup of a couple of different deities, just like any other deity. They change over time. So it was Marcion of Sinop, an early Greek theologian. Yeah. He said that basically. I'm just looking at the Wikipedia page right now. He said that he was the Old Testament was the creator God, the malevolent deity identified with the Hebrew God of the Old Testament. Yeah.
What was killing me too on that is they're saying how do you know that rape isn't bad without God? I'm like, there's no God in my life. I know rape is bad. To violate anybody in any way is bad.
I will tell you this: the reason why Christians or everyone or most people, the reason why we have moral instincts, and this is circular logic, is because they're moral instincts. You can look at how we have derived our moral proclivities, our tendencies from our ape cousins, from our chimpanzee cousins, right? That's you can see this kind of, chimpanzees know what's right, and they have a moral sense.
Yeah.
There's been countless experiments about that.
Well, I've got on that too, Rage. The one guy was saying, well, all animals rape each other, that's how they procreate and such. And and you got an interesting point, Andy, there, because the chimpanzees are our closest relatives in the animal kingdom. And they do show compassion. They do show caring.
And what's interesting about that too is that the kinder and gentler communities of chimpanzees are when they don't have to worry about food or water or shelter. In other words, when they don't feel under the gun, when they don't feel like they have to work hard to survive and every single minute is a struggle, they're actually nicer to each other. And fuck me, is that not how it works with us? Right?
Well, yeah, I saw a study where they took these foxes and they were breeding them for temperament. And the foxes that were nicer became more beautiful, and the ones that had a bad attitude, they bred them. They became more wolf looking, like, where the foxes. And it was like a 40-year study done in Russia, and it was pretty amazing how them animals changed just from appearance. This is how they was breeding them, because they figured breeding them, the nicer, softer ones, would make it easier to manage the animals.
Well, it's when Christians talk like this to atheists, and it's why I decided to just show the stream and not interject very much, because I wanted to really highlight. I was really hoping people would pick up on it. When Christians talk to atheists in these manners, it's just a complete dismissal of us as people. I've had this argument go way crazier than it did in that particular stream. I've had Jesus as Lord argue that because I can't have morality, I can't sit there and tell you why rape is wrong, even though I gave them a really clear answer when they asked me. I therefore must do these things, and they've taken it to like bestiality and like Jill was literally saying that I admitted to having sex with animals for years, even though I never admitted to that. It's their way to demean us, but they aren't like that when it's other Christians asking the same things. Yeah. If you notice that in that stream, I was asking or taking the same stance that Rebecca was, a female Christian in the room, and they treated her a completely different way. As soon as she was gone, it was, well, obviously you don't know that rape is bad. How do you know that rape is bad if God is gone? Like what? But it's how they treat us. It's how they demean us, because they can't take us seriously as people. Well, if they do, they'd have to listen to us. I'm
going to go back to the chimpanzee route one more time, is the fact that when human society was in life was nasty, brutish, and short, rape was much more accepted in society, right? That's just fact. But it was always wrong. It isn't until that society got kinder and gentler that people started realizing that this is completely unacceptable and it shouldn't happen to anyone. So there are many similarities between our chimpanzee cousins and where we are. And you know what, I have to say, just because you threw me some shekels there, K97. Nothing is something. When you think about nothing in the universe, there's always something there. There's always some kind of broth. There's always these kind of particles appearing and disappearing. So when you think of nothing, there's actually something in nothing. So you can't really say that there's absolutely nothing, or there was absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But thanks for the money. I appreciate it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's good that people throw out there, because myself, I've become more educated and such by being around you folks. I've never been religious except when I was going through legal troubles, and it was a way to play the system. But other than that, I've never really had any interest in religion, except maybe going to a party at the church, especially if it was the Lutherans or a synagogue. They have fucking awesome parties with lots of booze.
Yeah, but the thing is, K97, and since I'm going to entertain this just because you threw me a couple of bucks, and thank you again, is that, there is, you're assuming that what was in the universe before the Big Bang. And you're assuming that this kind of broth that we have now, where virtual particles blink in and out of existence, wasn't there before that. That's what you're assuming. And just because you can't explain something right now doesn't mean it's magic, brother or sister. I don't know your gender. I don't know who you but just because you cannot explain something right now doesn't mean magic is real.
Yeah, and we can't go beyond a certain point with the math.
Right
But
now.
right now, eventually, I think we'll clearly understand the mechanics of I like to call it the Great Expansion myself. But I just said this in a stream the other day, Andy. I don't take away from the fact it could have been God there pulling the mechanisms of that. We don't know, but neither do you. So
Right.
And the thing is, if you don't have the evidence to support your assertion, that means we can't treat it as real. We can't really take it seriously, right? Like Santa Claus.
Yeah. We're not the ones making the claim that God was there. You are. So have evidence of that. If you don't, I don't have to believe it. I'll wait for the evidence to come in.
I've been engulfing myself into the Younger Dryas period that ended the Pleistocene.
Oh yeah,
it's pretty crazy, that floods. I buy into these great floods of civilizations, just because there is fact on there has been great floods. Yeah. Many of these cultures didn't travel, very far from them. So if there was this flood in their region, the whole world was flooding. Do I buy it as
to them? Their world was flooding. Yeah.
Do I buy it as the whole blip? Because one of the things get thrown out is there's folklore on all these civilizations having floods. Well, they probably did at different times. Was there a deluge that fucking flooded the whole world? No, but to them at that time, where they was at, it seemed their whole world was flooded.
As far as I understand the history, and I'm not, or the science in this regard, I'm not a scientist, and I only look at this shit to rebut the things that Christians say. But as far as I can remember my research, the most myth stories come from a regional flooding that occurred 15 to 20,000 years ago, and we have geologists have proven that regional flooding can even shape the topography of the earth. It can shape the way the top of the earth looks. A global flood never did. We've proven that a global flood didn't shape the topography of the earth, but there is an area in western United States where the topography was changed because of the regional flood.
Channel Scablands, when Lake Missoula, and that would have been during the Younger Dryas period.
Oh, really?
There was a lake there. The glaciers melted and it flooded. And if you ever seen the Channel Scablands, it's unreal, the damage that occurred. Forever, J. Harlan Bretz, he spent 2 decades or better disputing that it was one great flood that caused that, where, the scientific community said it was just a bunch of woo-woo. It didn't happen that way. Well, he was like 96 years old when he won the Penrose Prize. It's a it's the highest medal that or accolade that a geologist can get. And at 96, he goes, "I just wish that some of these people were still alive, that I could gloat over them." Yeah, beautiful man.
Imaginary God goes, question, how many gumballs are in the jar? Answer, William Lane Craig. Gumballs wouldn't exist without God. Gumballs exist, therefore God exists. Yeah. My favorite bit from William Lane Craig is when he was basically doing his shtick about why, we should feel sympathy for the genociders, for the killers, for the supposed killers of the Canaanites, of the babies, the women, the children, of the Jewish invasion that never really happened in the land of Canaan. It was all about this. We shouldn't be feeling sorry for the victims. We should be feeling sorry for all of Joshua's men who had to go around killing women and children in the ancient land of Canaan. Those are the ones that we should really feel sorry about.
Well, what took him 40 years to go on a 30-day trip?
K97. Once again, this is an argument. This is an argument from ignorance. This is saying that basically you don't know something, so something else must be true. That doesn't work. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I mentioned this in a stream a few days back. I can't remember. I need to go find this and find the scientists that were talking about this. I'm not by any means saying that this is consensus at this point, but it is some new radical theory that some astronomers are putting out, that they have evidence that the universe is indeed eternal. And if that's the case, that's going to throw a lot of wrench into some theist shit, but again, like that's been kind of like theoretical argument for, the whole modern science era is is there a beginning to the universe?
Well,
We
before
don't really have all the answers here yet. We're getting there.
I remember
All
reading.
science starts with a theory.
I remember reading through my dad's science books, and when he got these science books, they were old books too. And this was before people realized that there was something outside of the galaxy, outside of the Milky Way galaxy. And it's like, oh, well, the universe has always existed. I remember reading as a kid,
Well, I remember reading the extinction of the dinosaurs. It was volcanic. Well, yes, it was, but with the KT boundary, they proved that it was something came from the skies and wiped it out. With the impact proxies, the nanodiamonds and such, they find in the soils at that boundary, it became fact. And then everybody would be, the other scientists are saying, well, show us the fucking crater. The world's 70% water, and they did find it, down in the Yucatan Peninsula, out off the Gulf of Mexico. So,
yeah.
And it's kind of the where this group of scientists on the Younger Dryas, and there's belief that there was civilization before them. They're like, well, show us the writings, show us their invention. Well, if there was that kind of catastrophe, and we've been writing stuff on papyrus, that type of stuff is not gonna, be found anymore.
Well, there have definitely been societal implosions. There's no doubt about that. Whether it's the Mayans, which the last theory I've heard about the Mayans is that it was climate change. The water supplies dried up basically. The Minoans, people in Crete, the Bronze Age collapse. Civilization was societies were more tenable. Well, not more tenable. What's the word I'm looking for? They were much more delicate. Of course, back then, thousands of years ago, than they are today.
Well, yeah, we've had a population boom the last couple hundred years, but I find it fast. I've never looked at that time period. So what you're saying, John, is kind of fascinating. I'm gonna have to look into it.
Well, there's a lot to know.
There's so much out there. I got up at 12:30. I've been up since.
Dude, I saw you up when I was up at 4:30 this morning. I saw John
I've been up since 12:30 last night, just because I delve into something like that, and it's like, and I've had interest in this for back when Dr. Schock was saying, the Sphinx is a lot older, and it's pretty much become scientific fact that with the erosions of the Sphinx, that it is older. And
I think it is.
If you look at the different stratas of the builds down in South America, you have your Cyclopean architecture, you have your megalithic architecture, and then you've got what was a Mayan architecture. And there's 3 different layers. These are not the same builders. These were not the same teachers that taught the people how to do stonework. They was doing the best they could with what they had. So it clearly, to me, shows 3 different generations or epochs, 3 different times that these people were building on these same structures, which makes sense because if I was to build a house out back and there was a foundation that was still there, I'm going to run with it.
I'm being distracted by the chat, but as well as this, what I find, Knock, and I don't know if you find it the same way, is that to do this space well, you have to be good at a million fucking different things all at once.
I learned the hard way. I entered those Matt Powell conversations not having hardly any understanding really on evolution. You know, like I've been so far how long removed from high school.
Mhm.
I would really went into it thinking that we were going to have a chat about just differences between atheists and Christians, and it became this evolution thing, and I didn't have a lot of answers. So yeah, I've learned on man time and time again that for some reason atheists we're held to a standard that we should know in any given situation, to where they really aren't held to that.
Right.
Well,
Well, the only thing they have to say is magic pixie dust, Jesus.
yeah, well,
You know, when that's your karate move and all your buds are behind you going, yeah, magic pixie dust, Jesus, we win. You know, that's what it is.
Rage,
Yeah.
it's hard to stay up on the science because
Oh, it
it's
is.
ever changing.
It's constantly changing.
Yeah.
You know, somebody throws out a hypothesis, and it's peer reviewed, it's disputed. It's not
The
somebody
work of
comes up with
archaeology
a
is
fucking idea, and every scientist runs up on, pats him on the back like it's Christianity. Oh, you're so right. No,
yeah.
they try to dismantle that motherfucker. You know
Well,
what I mean?
and when you're talking about history and you're talking about archaeology and digging up and trying to, histories are written by victors of wars. History is inaccurate. We're trying to find a more accurate version. You're doing that through a very scientific process. And the work of archaeology isn't done. They're in the middle of it, right? Like we are uncovering the ancient past and learning more about it than we ever have before.
It's
Well, they
about
don't
10
want to change the paradigm as far as archaeology goes. There's this story that's been told that we've been a civilization for 5,000 years. It started with the Sumerians, and that's the way it goes. And bullshit. When you go back to Göbekli Tepe, it was buried 10,000 years ago. The megalithic structure that was intentionally buried.
Well, I always thought Samaria was 10 to 15,000.
I thought it was older myself. Yeah. What I will say is that K97 wants you to think that we can't explain how the universe started, so that means we should all get circumcised. Basically, that's the argument.
I'll go in for a second cut.
Good for you, John. That's good. You got to be circumcised around your heart. That's what you have to do. You have to be circumcised around your heart.
No, but from what I understand, we were Stone Age people. 10,000 years ago, we learned animal husbandry and how to cultivate. And then we started to learn to build and such.
I will say that this is the big difference, right, between faith and science and honest scholastic pursuits, is that faith and religion want to deal with big T truths, right? That this is true. It has always been true. It will always be true in the future. Well, science just does this conditional truths, right? These small T truths. It's like, this is what we know at this time. We could be wrong. This is where the smart money is. No one's going to put smart money on that. There's a God. There's some old dude in the sky doing things. Magic pixie Jesus dust. No one's going to say that. And the smart money isn't there. And, we just kind of schlep along. This is what makes science so unsatisfying for a lot of people who are not comfortable with ambiguity in their lives. And if you're not comfortable with ambiguity in your life, that means you're more than likely going to go for a conspiracy theory. And guess what? Society has its own sanctioned conspiracy theory named Christianity. Right? You can get all the big T truths that you want to, all in one spot, and you don't have to do any more thinking.
Well,
let me get it here real quick, because I pulled it up real quick, and John's actually right, man. I'm gonna have to look into this. History of Sumer taken to include the prehistoric Ubaid and Uruk periods. So there were prehistoric periods, spans the 5th and 3rd millennia BCE, ending with the downfall of the 3rd dynasty of Ur around 2004 BCE. So it's roughly emerged about 6,000 years ago. I always thought it was 10,000, and 15,000 would have been a longer period, but interesting. There was a prehistoric Ubaid and Uruk period, but no.
Well, I look at it this way: if there was a catastrophe, and the earth fell into, a dark winter. It would be the people that are living off the land already. It'd be our, people down in the Amazon or whatever, would be the ones who survived. And with them, there would be no written text or whatever, to show that there was civilization.
Well, tell me if I'm wrong. By its very definition, and I don't want to play semantics here, the beginning of settlements, right? The agricultural revolution would I guess it wouldn't have to be by definition prehistoric, because prehistoric just means that there aren't any written records down. Is that how we're defining prehistoric?
Well, I would say that the end of the Pleistocene, the start of the Holocene, would be prehistory to me. Because there is no written record of it.
Yeah, and then this is not my area of specialty, obviously.
I've been a student of history and geology my whole life.
If Dr. Josh was watching, he'd be like, silly nah.
Pardon me?
No, if Dr. Josh was watching me right now, he'd be chuckling like, nah. You should have learned. You should have learned from me better, Padawan.
Because I tried to learn to read the cuneiform writings, and for years I have. And but you have writings like from Zachariah Sitchin, who Michael Cremo, they're fucking crackpots. And I was buying into what they were saying, but then you've got educated people like Dr. Josh, and a lot of it is still interpretation. We do not know exactly what they're saying, and Dr. Josh comes about saying that, to the best of our interpretation of these texts, is what it says.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's all we can. I mean, and I think he put this out in his book, Atheist Guide to the Old Testament. And if you haven't seen our discussion of that, and see, this is a plug, because I had him on this channel, we talked about the book, is that, so there is obviously sociology, archaeology, they're different from the hard sciences, right? In terms of how our understanding evolves over time. So no one's going to say that Newton's laws of motion are wrong. There'll be special ways of looking at them in certain circumstances, right? When things go really fast, when things get really big. But with sociology and archaeology, these softer sciences, there's definitely more. You got to rely on the scholastic consensus and say, where's the smart money in this? And that can be a lower percentage of reliability than, let's say, what you can know about physics or math, maybe.
Well, I look at the Bible as folklores and stories that maybe had an ounce of truth in them to begin with, but it's like the telephone game. It gets fucking spun out by the end, and that's what got written down.
Different people. This is going to sound trite. Different people have different motivations, so it's not unreasonable to say that people thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago had different motivations when collecting, editing, manipulating the text or creating the text in the first place.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Paul Bunyan. Hey, was there a big guy that could chop wood like a motherfucker? Probably.
Yeah.
There's a story about it. Was he this 30-foot man that could take out a forest in one swing? Nah. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. He was a Nephilim.
Mile high creature.
But then again, I'm 5'10". I stand up against somebody who's 6'6". They fucking seem like a giant to me.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, especially back then, like humans were smaller. So, like, if you had a human being that was 6'5", 6'9", you have a Goliath, without a doubt.
And there again, it just we like to embellish the. I got this fish. This fish was this fucking big. Mm-hmm. the
bigger and
fisherman
bigger.
story.
Yeah,
We embellish. We try to put a shine on our stories and try to make them more interesting. As humans, it's our nature, you know.
So Deepak's asked me how my job is going. I'm going to give you two answers. My day job is going well, quite well. I'm going to work today, and after the show, and I think Only Sky, another cheap plug, well, what's soon to be the world's largest secular site, because I'm leaving the world's largest secular site, which was Patheos Now Religious, and going to Only Sky. The soft launch is supposed to be today. I'm not a technical guy. I don't think it's live right now. The hard launch is supposed to be the real launch when it's live in public for anyone to see is going to be in early January. So I'm really fucking busy right now. I have to tell you, I'm just busy. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm going to see Taylor Tomlinson tonight, the comedian, ex-Christian, or she was brought up in a really conservative religious household. I don't know if she would consider herself ex-Christian, but she's definitely not fundamentalist. So I'm seeing her tonight, bringing my kid. So that's what's going on with Andy. So things are going well overall.
Oh.
Busy.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. I think I'm going to start closing things up, guys. It's like almost an hour. So
Gotcha.
what do you got going on today, John Hudson? You got anything exciting?
I'm going down to do a Bloody Mary breakfast with the Pyrotech people and see what we can do to promote them.
Yes. Cool. Dee asked me how is Miss Biscuit doing. Miss Biscuit is doing well. I posted on the cat's Facebook page her my cat's Christmas stocking. It's got a little paw print on it. It looks great, if I do say so myself. So the girlfriend's doing well too. Yeah. The
girlfriend sounds like a hell of a sport. Is all I got to say. Put up with your ass. God damn!
Here's the thing, and I'm going to.
What a great woman.
I'm going to speak to people who are content creators and artists. Is that you will notice that there are people who think that being a content creator, an artist, whatever, is like really appealing and sexy, and that lasts for about 2 weeks until they realize what fucking grinding work it is. Right?
You're better than me. I can get about 2 hours out of them people.
Yeah.
Then they start seeing me for what I really am.
And then because you try to they hear the same joke being workshopped in front of different audiences, and it's like we just went out with my friends on Sunday. It's like you're telling the story again. You only don't like the story because you've heard it 5 times. But this is So she is a saint. Yeah. How about you, Knock? What do you got going on, brother?
I'm not sure yet. Like I'm gonna be streaming probably in an hour, maybe at noon. I just haven't decided on what yet. Topic focused. I'm trying to really get away from any kind of drama and stuff. Get back to making Christians really hate me again.
Good for you.
Hey, make it noon because I should be back and be a little bit tipsy. I'll be fun in the chat.
I don't think we can handle John Hudson tipsy. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
You've seen me flat out fucking drunk, Andy.
Well, I was probably blacked out at the time in my defense.
He was drinking too.
Oh, by the way, we're doing Atheists Drinking Out Loud this weekend on Saturday.
Nice.
5 to 7. It's a Christmas special, so we're going to have. So it is going to be Seamus, the 604 Atheists, and myself, but we're going to have rotating people coming in and out of the show.
I like that. I've caught you a couple of times doing that. It's like hanging out with friends, having drinks.
Well, that's what it is. That's what we're doing this Saturday at 5 p.m.
It's kind of like why I like watching Oz too. Especially when he shot. Fuck, I have my glass there. Don't think I'm not drinking.
All right, everyone. Doing the same crazy thing tomorrow. I will see you later. Thanks, everyone. Shamla Hamala is right.
Shamala Hamala.